who've been doing this for decades. It was called avatar therapy before and funded by the VA. So that's kind of been the gift of this is when I started in 2020, it seemed like a novel idea, but then more I've been in the field, the more I've discovered other people who have been doing this for decades, and we're just now able to talk about it.
What's good, y'all? Jeremiah Knight here, of course, joined by my co-host,
Luis Abbott.
and we're gathered here today with our guest, Monet Goldman.
Thanks for having me.
We know Monet from our Starlight days, so way back to 2018. Some of us met him in the bathroom, I assume.
Yeah, we met in the bathroom, I think.
Yeah, safest place.
Yeah, we were talking about things we shouldn't be talking about.
yeah, but it led us here.
That led us, yeah.
I met him in group supervision, but that was it. Like you popped in, I think you were in FSP at the time.
Yeah. I it was really, you were in IOP and got to talk about some interesting cases and trying to figure out creative ways to help bullied kids and just thinking outside the box.
Yeah, and so from there, you left Starlight, you hopped around, continued to work with kids, moved into juvenile hall, worked with them there, eventually until you started to work in schools and do your own private practice, and now you're big time and in group practice, running your whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It has been a journey.
been a journey being the supervisor, a big timer, business owner, entrepreneur, and you found yourself a pretty inspiring niche.
It's definitely born out of, I think, necessity during the quarantine era of the pandemic. So June 2020, before we had vaccines, and I was working with 8, 9-year-olds and doing phone therapy was just not happening. And I saw a lot of my relationships with these kids start to dwindle because I used to do play therapy. We had very creative programs where we used hiking in therapy, ecotherapy, rock climbing in therapy. So I was always into using activities in combination with play therapy to try and help kids process their difficult feelings, but also learn social communication, emotional regulation skills in very age appropriate ways. And I think having that creativity did lead me to see that video games could be a digital activity of play therapy. So, really fortunate that my agency, Uplift Family Services, which is, called something else now.
Yeah, I always forget.
Yeah, they got bought out, but for better, and thanks to them, I was able to run groups virtually and hosted Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft groups, and Fortnite was even hosting giant musical performances. So I got to virtually see all these kids, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're here! Like we're at this concert!" Like yeah, and it was 2020, so we couldn't do anything.
It's wild. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 7-year-olds. It's like the pandemic wasn't even happening in that moment. So, that really brought everybody out of that kind of, it seemed almost apocalyptic at the time. But for those moments, we were just having fun, which really hard to do that
Well,
time.
that's so cool and fortunate that your Uplift was like open to that, you know what I mean? And open to like being able to, have those facilitate that and kind of bring that into, or being creative during the pandemic. I think a lot of us all had to be creative in some sense around therapy or how we're going to connect with our clients. And so like for them to be open, that's much props to them. That's awesome.
Yeah, because those sessions were tough. Because I mean, there's sessions where I had clients that are just like, I can only talk to you on the phone, and are we done?
Yeah.
Hi,
yeah, I
and
remember
are we
those.
done?
Yeah, those are rough. Yeah. Just like
So you
2
felt-
minutes. And you're like, "Yeah, how you doing? Good.
Yeah.
Okay, you want anything you want to talk about? No.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, it was very stressful because I wasn't even licensed yet. So I was still an associate. I couldn't go and build my own practice. So I was still somewhat at the mercy of a company. And it was also before any financial relief. So you're just looking at layoffs and like, oh my God. So I'm going to lose my job and I can't even get licensed. So it was a very tough time. Thankfully, I did get licensed in October 2020. And yeah, just kind of, I still stayed with the company and, they're fortunate, or we're both fortunate collectively to still develop these programs. So
Yeah, and find ways. And I think we all had to be creative, some sense. We were allowed some creative liberty to some degree, and in a way, I think it was. I mean, it's beautiful that you were able to kind of find this way to connect with kids and just that ability. Had that always been something that you always had a history of, or just at least within your relationship with video
Oh,
games?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No, I really feel fortunate. It kind of reminds me of like that Malcolm Gladwell book Outliers, where it talks about, say the Beatles or some other performers who had to put in 10,000 hours before they made it big. And gaming has been in my life since I was like 4 or 5. My dad was probably one of the first gamers as a boomer, and he was very involved in my life, my soccer coach, and also playing games. So I always had this positive relationship with gaming. Of course, when I got bad grades, early on in middle school, my dad was like very swift to cut that off. And, I didn't get to game until I got my A's back. So, I have to give it to my dad for really making it clear what the expectations were. And that's probably where I help the parents, because a lot of the parents kind of struggle with saying those boundaries and expectations, because the parents do understand the value of the games and say social media as a form of connection. But then there's kind of that line that gets crossed where, all right, now my kid is like just not sleeping, or they're not doing their homework, and now they're grouchy and like irritable, and they don't want to do anything else but game. And so that's kind of when I start maybe tapping into my own experiences. And I guess being born and raised in Silicon Valley, where you're surrounded by all this, it's definitely taken a different maybe parenting style, but most are pretty adaptable and open to it. It can be scary when you're disrupting any kind of dynamic or homeostasis in a family. So I try and get in earlier and try to make sure that the parents and kids are aligned. And so you do have to do maybe a lot of like family therapy, and that's kind of I still do the therapy work. It's just has this extra maybe layer of, all right, it's video games instead of maybe sneaking out and partying, or not going to school and hanging out with some romantic partner.
Yeah, tough customers who are doing the bad stuff.
Right. Yeah. Like, yeah, when we first met, and they're all just, as soon as they get a chance, they go on the run. And,
Common argument where it's like, I'm not doing drugs, I'm not doing anything, I'm just playing video games. Like, yeah, but you're doing it to like 4 a.m. You got school at 7.
Yeah, it's
So
like excessive, you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. Because I always kind of think of things of like with anything, it's kind of almost like a bell curve in a way. It's like there's kind of this trend upwards where it's like positive, and then all of a sudden kind of plateaus, but then it goes like back down, and that's when it becomes starting to become like negative, or it's like detrimental to you. And so it's like, yeah, it's finding that balance of like where's the kind of net positive in this, and when does it start becoming more negative, in the sense, in like in the context of like video games and all that.
right. Yeah. And I do try to stay away from like video game addiction, because it kind of clouds our judgment and looking out for more serious underlying things like, hey, maybe they have OCD, or maybe they have ADHD or trauma. And literally, the video games are the things that stop those traumatic thoughts from coming up, or they have ADHD and their brains just don't perceive that time. And so, that's when we might start assessing and be like, okay, maybe, hey, get assessed here and maybe explore extra options. But I think being, educated in the mental health field, we're still taught to assess at a deeper level. And so I still do that. I think we generationally are in a great place, because a lot of psychiatrists play video games, a lot of parents now, like the same generation, millennials, in a lot of ways. So it's a lot easier to make those connections.
yeah, and I think the field is getting a whole lot younger too. And video games have been around for a long time. So yeah, like you say, your dad and boomers.
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, I'll say the Atari generation maybe
right.
is more accurate, but like we had Super Mario, and when we were talking here before we started recording, saying we had friends that were down the street, and they may have had the only game system on the block, and so we had to go
Yeah,
there.
over there,
It
yeah.
was more of a community, but now it's more than that. And so when you say kind of like, oh yeah, there might be some more stuff underlying the addiction piece, a lot of the clients is it might be social anxiety, because like, hey, this is the only way I can connect with people outside of this. It's nerve-wracking because I don't know if they're playing video games. I don't know if we like the same common things, and there's this anxiety that builds, and so I'm going to connect with these people, or or they move to these different pieces, and video games is the only way I can still connect with my friends, and so I'm gonna overindulge into that. And so I think there are a lot of people, when we talk about video games, they think about this piece, this escape, this I'm going to avoid everything else. I'm not going to do my work. I'm not going to do my responsibilities. I'm not going to engage with other people. And so when you come and say video game therapy is going to help you with that or out of that, then I can imagine there's a lot of people like are a little skeptic or a little bit like,
Yeah, absolutely.
sure about that?
Yeah, oh yeah. No, it's been an uphill battle, and I think I definitely wrestled with a lot of doubt, and I think generationally that might be the strength where I've been able to see how it can be helpful, just hosting like a birthday party sleepover, and it's like, man, what do we all have in common as 10-year-olds? Like, well, let's play Super Smash, and then it's like, bam, everybody's friends. It's helpful for me freshman year of college, just like walking onto a college wrestling team, and it's just incredibly intimidating, nerve-wracking. And so, I'd have poor athletic performance because of that anxiety. And then somebody brought in like an N64 Super Smash Brothers thing. And so we were all just hanging out, playing, and then we would leave 5 minutes, 10 minutes before practice start. And I had a much better practice because I wasn't worn out from the anxiety and the stress. It was like, wow, okay, I was able to really focus. It was almost like a mindfulness experience, and you can feel positive emotion. You can laugh, you can feel joyous before entering like a very intimidating environment. So could kind of see where it could be applied therapeutically. Of course, I also had teammates who then like didn't make the team because they were gaming or they weren't studying and things like that. So it is an interesting point. The social anxiety piece, I think, is probably the biggest strength because, taking just somebody who's totally isolated, doesn't even know how to start, like it gets them from 0 to 1, which is just the hardest jump, by safely kind of exploring, say on Discord or subreddits, just different communities. And then they're able to see, oh, these people have the same kind of thoughts and ideas as I do. And so it's a very safe way for people to kind of edge out of their cave and find community in that regard.
Yeah, I'm interested in the, now we have, using video games as a way of like connecting with our clients or helping them better with mental health, whatever, communication, whatever you're trying to do. Like, what does like a session look like?
Yeah, because I'm thinking like Mortal Kombat, you're ripping off my face. How is this therapeutic here?
Yeah. You just, how do you write that note?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you,
Write that soap note.
yeah, I guess it's, it's interesting because the kind of pressure maybe I put on myself was maybe the fear of how others would judge. But then once I kind of zoned in on the present moment with the client, then I could kind of see, okay, here's a kid who started the session very blank slate, no motion, just one-worded answers, and then he suddenly just opens up, he's talkative, and he's animated. And so it's almost like an antidepressant in like, all right, this person now has more energy, his mood's lifted, he's more open, he feels aligned with me. Then you could do so much more therapeutic work from that. You can start to see how this person maybe communicates, or like how they might rub people the wrong way and not even notice it. And so you're putting them in an environment that's very natural, that's happening every day. And then you're able to see how that authentically happens. How it's going to look is, it's going to be different for maybe an elementary school kid versus a teenager. And so you still want to be trained in, say, age appropriate play therapy. Maybe the easiest example I could think of is maybe working with a teen who has social anxiety, depression, is very self-critical. CBT can be applied, where you line up and you're about to join a game, and automatically this kid starts saying, oh man, I'm going to suck, and like, man, I'm going to do terribly. And it's like, man, here's those automatic negative thoughts coming up, psyching himself out. And it's like, wow, okay, this is great information I could never get from this kid if I was just sitting across, like, hey, so like what happens before an event starts? It's like, I don't know, get nervous. But then like when you're in there with them, you start seeing the details, and then you have just more data to work from. And then we play the game, and then at the end of the battle, it shows a score. And the kid's like, man, I probably did the worst. And like, man, I probably like, it's my fault we lost. And then we see the score. It's like, dude, you were the best player. Like you got like 5 headshots. Like, and then you show that evidence, and then you could do cognitive restructuring where, oh, wait a second, like I'm actually doing well, and they can kind of internalize that and cement in, after a few rounds, this kid is no longer talking negatively. He's not psyching himself up. He's like, okay, cool, like let's go for the next round. And so there's just so much you can work from there. Of course, when that happened, I didn't know it was going to happen. I just had to kind of sit and be ready and be open. And so that's maybe where the difficulty of doing this comes in. It's like it's a bit like improv. You have to go with the flow, and you have to be very strong in your kind of therapy fundamentals. Like maybe I do video game therapy, but hey, I gotta still know about cognitive behavioral therapy, solution focus, narrative therapy, still to apply it here.
Yeah, and have the right focus because you have a good base with play therapy in the sense you are engaging, interacting with the child too, or at least the teen or whomever to kind of pull out these pieces and shine a light on kind of like how they're receiving this information, how they're interacting with it, what's the story that they're telling themselves, how are they talking to themselves so you can bring awareness to that and then you glide in.
Yeah, it's almost like an adjunct to like already like what you're, if it's like CBT or ACT. So like video game counseling is like the adjunct to like, okay, like, all right, cool. Like I can use ACT right now. I can use CBT or TFCBT, whatever it is, and like, yeah, it's interesting because it's like, even when you're saying that example, it's like, I'm thinking about ACT. It's like, oh, the diffusion technique is like, oh, when you know, oh, I'm noticing I'm having the blah, blah, blah. And so it's like, oh, I can do that right in the moment with the client when they're talking negative about themselves. Like, oh, you notice you're talking negative about yourself. I'm wondering if like, let's try this technique or something, or what can help you when you're not in therapy and you're dealing with that when you're playing video games. Like you can use this technique helping you to separate yourself from that thought.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I love ACT. Very creative, very strong with metaphors, and the kids or the clients, because use video game therapy with adults too, they're more motivated to try the strategies to open up, move their body, to relax. So you get their buy-in. And that's huge because it's like if the problem I was having is you present a worksheet or you're like, hey guys, we're going to do mindfulness. And everybody's like, oh, that's like really stupid. Or, oh, what are you going to do? Tell me to do yoga? It's like, back my head. It's like, I love yoga. Why, like, why are you making fun of me?
Yeah.
It does in a way act like play therapy because instead of just us sitting and talking about what's in your mind, what's coming up, we're actually living life, or we're bringing life into the session and we're doing things. And as you go and as they're being themselves, these things pop up and then you can be able to, hey, I noticed this pattern. Tell me more about that. And then you smooth it out. Is that how you see when it comes to video games, whether you are playing Roblox and you guys are thinking about like creating and how they talk to themselves as they're creating different things, or is you guys playing Call of Duty and it's like what comes up and you're kind of
I hear you. It's like, am I, how am I justifying the therapeutic aspect of it? And, I guess it can come down to, well, maybe we're taught just like being client centered and like working within the client's world and being willing to enter into their world. And I think that's maybe why it's easier for me to do, because like video games have just been in my life, and so it just seemed to make so much sense and it seemed very smooth. And I think that's why I had a hard time really going with it, because I was getting a lot of kind of pushback and things like that. But with the video games, like nowadays, I would say it's a lot better. I mean, there's some kids I've worked with from elementary school and then now they're in high school, and the quality of the games they're playing is so much better. And it's a lot more fun because when like I never played Roblox, I never played Minecraft, I never played Fortnite until like I had to in 2020. And so I was just willing to let the kids teach me. And then that's therapeutic right there. It's like, wow, this kid gets to feel in charge for the first time in his life or her life. Now they're, building the confidence and the leadership and ownership in that regard. So it could really easily flip the script. And we saw so many kids, they're very, kids with autism, ADHD, and like OCD, and like maybe before the pandemic, when we're doing these group play activities, a lot of these kids would have anxiety and they'd refuse to play or talk with the others. But then in the video game world, they feel so much safer. Now they're leading the charge. Now they're like being enthusiastic and they're able to display these. So, just being flexible. I mean, it takes a lot of work. A lot of the therapists on my team in 2020, some of them had never played a video game, but we're just like,
Never?
yeah, it was like maybe Duck Hunt
Yeah.
once. And I know I was surprised. I was like, I can't be the only one. And it turns out I was the only
Tetris.
one.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah. But they saw it work and they were willing to learn, and we've all been educated in doing child play therapy. So it wasn't too hard.
I mean, I imagine you get to choose the game most of the time.
Yeah, sometimes I'm at their mercy. But yeah, sometimes I look out and it's like, oh, we're playing Elden Ring. Hell yeah. Like, yeah, how do you beat this boss? Because I've been stuck. Yeah.
So you get some benefit out of it too.
Yeah. It's like, oh, those are the best. Like when we both win.
So you have more control of what games are being played, or you kind of let the kid or the
It's
child, teenager?
I would say it goes both. Like, sometimes if I'm not great at the game, because I still need to be the therapist. So it would be if I feel like, all right, I can't be a therapist and try play this game at the same time, I'll kind of take a step back, and maybe that's when I'll be the witness. And this is probably helpful for parents who want to build that relationship with their kids and they don't feel comfortable playing or they don't have the energy playing. All right, now we can learn, all right, how do we maybe praise and identify their strengths, boost their confidence in these ways, or reinforce the kind of thought patterns or play patterns you want them to. And so that's sometimes what I do is I'm kind of like the spectator, and I'm able to maybe track what they're doing. And that's kind of play therapy too.
Are there any limits when it comes to choice of games? Like, or do you have any boundaries, or it's kind of like, oh, you can bring any game you want?
Yeah, I mean, want to get parents' consent, and have them sign like a consent form. But yeah, probably the biggest one is just like the horror or scary games. Want to make sure it's age appropriate. Some kids might want to do the scarier games. That one's a little tricky because sometimes they do the scary games, but then they like work through that fear. But then sometimes they might like get stuck. So I would say probably those aspects are tough. But yeah, some of the better games, the fun games, are pretty violent and fun. But
GTA 5.
yeah. So a lot of the single player games like that, I might be more of a witness. Sometimes it's just helpful for their own anxiety. Like if they can play something and talk to me, and it keeps them in the room, great. Because they don't need to come. Or I think we've had plenty of clients who like just ghosted us or didn't show up. So just trying to get their buy-in and working with them there.
I mean, for this, they're coming in, they're interacting with the game. As they're interacting with the game, they're showing more of their true selves, social abilities, etc., that you can work with and pull on. How do you get them to buy into that and share? And because it is a big piece of what they bring into the room and you interact with. And I know there's been times where we played games with kids as we, been out in the community, and they're locked in. They can't even get their attention. They're just dialed in. And I think Luis went home. Oh no, he's sitting right next to you. Oh, I haven't said 2 words to him in like the past 15 minutes.
Yeah, how do you do that? How do you guide in a way, like kind of facilitate that?
Yeah, so I guess there's different play therapy strategies. So there's situations where you don't even ask a question. It's very non-directive. So just thinking more like Rogerian, just kind of the reflection, the tracking, praise, the strengths, building. That's kind of why I talk about being a spectator or a cheer person. That goes a long way too, because the kids can feel put on the spot and freeze up if you kind of ask them a question. And I've literally had like one young girl just be like, oh, why are you asking me that? Like, don't you see I'm playing? And I was like, damn, okay, my bad. Like, I guess okay. But at the same time, I think I disrupted her own processing, maybe because I was so nervous to prove that this therapy could be beneficial. I then asked a question that disrupted her own kind of way of self-soothing and processing internally. I think that's just the hardest part is you don't know, especially with kids, like how they're healing internally through this play. And it's nerve-wracking just thinking like, oh man, how am I going to justify this? There's power in play therapy. I think a lot of the healing's so internal that it can be hard to observe from the outside. But that's why we have research to justify play therapy in that aspect.
When you say like video game theory, I imagine you are playing like co-op games. I imagine you're playing, side by side. Because I mean, you're watching Sally play Grand Theft Auto, and she, runs 5 red lights and robs 3 banks. You're like, hey, tell me how you really feel about that.
It's like, well, yeah, you could post that as a question, or you could just make that observation. Or maybe they're laughing, like, wow, you're really having fun, like just tearing through this neighborhood. It's like, yeah, I love it. Like, this person reminds me of my teacher.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Oh,
Damn.
it's like, oh man, this is exactly what my friend and I were doing last week. It's like, oh, there we go. Like, I mean, these things just like pop up. And I think, during the pandemic, playing games was kind of a lifeline for me too. And I'd play some like really giant open world games. Gosh, I'm blanking on it. But essentially, like, you'd get into 3-on-3 shooting matches, but maybe for 5-10 minutes, you guys are just running through the field searching for resources. And during that time, I would just be bonding with random people online who are just like, yep, this pandemic's crazy. And like, oh, I'm from San Diego, or oh, I'm from West Virginia. And like during those moments, things would just pop up. And the hard part with the video game therapy is maybe designing specific maybe stimuli for the client, because you're kind of relying on the game to create certain buttons to be pressed within their own memory to reveal that. So I think, maybe down the line, I would want to be able to, I think about making a game that has more of that therapeutic kind of structure to it, where maybe it is easier. I mean, with Roblox, you could make a world, and I thought about creating like an obstacle course that had maybe like feeling questions to like prompt a kid. So, that might be the next stage, is adding more of those therapeutic little prompts or like nuggets to like elicit those kinds of conversations. But, who knows? That's something I'd love to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like when you think about like, yeah, play therapy, it's like the sandbox and you got the little like, little toys and characters and stuff. Like you almost could look at it as like now we're in like a virtual sandbox.
Yes,
And
exactly.
now we have all these different characters you're playing, and like it can also elicit that same kind of response of like, oh, it can whatever. If there's a video game that shows like a mom or a dad or whatever, and it's like, oh, then that can, if they're having issues with their mom or dad or however that character responds in that game, then it can elicit that a response like, oh yeah, like it reminds me of my mom, or oh, my dad gets angry like that. It's like, oh, so what's been the response from therapists? Is there a lot of openness to it, or has there been like criticism or pushback? Because I know earlier you were saying with parents, or maybe there's some pushback against video game therapy. Like, what is it with, I don't know if you've experienced with therapists or in the field of like, what's their response to this?
Yeah, it is interesting because they seem interested. They know their kids or clients love video games. And so they see the potential, like, wow, if you could like connect therapy and their preferred interest, that's gold mine. And I think trying to figure that out is where people maybe get stumbled. But for, I would say, the therapists, those who get it, like it's a done deal. I don't need to go further. But those who are hesitant, I think, are just so scared of how to justify what they do. Because play therapy, working with kids can be a very long process and be hard to see behavioral change. And so, when I was working with a lot of the schools, there's kind of a pressure to like, hey, we need this kid to like stop
hitting.
stop hitting, stop
Sit
doing
still
this.
in class. And
Right. And so there's such an emphasis on results. And I think that adds a lot of pressure in it. The field of therapy looks different because of that, because you maybe before you could take more time to process and for a kid to develop, but now there's maybe more of an emphasis of, hey, okay, well, we need a result, or hey, we're paying for this, so we need this now. Or I mean, yeah, who knows when a person's going to get get better. I mean, we try to give a range. Oftentimes I'm like their second or third therapist if I get another kid. So because of podcasts and stuff like this, I've had parents say, hey, I heard you talk about VR therapy or video game therapy, and like this is exactly what my kid needs. And they've already tried the talk therapy, they've already tried the other stuff, so they don't have really much to lose trying this new thing.
It sounds like video game therapy also suffers the same challenges with play therapy because again, a lot of our career field now is results. We need the results. Insurance is paying, so they want to see that we got to A to B and we need it now. But this is more like whatever the child gives me, we work on.
Well, I would add actually, God, I know very specifically a therapist supervisor who's like, this isn't real, stop promoting this. And then I actually found a video of, he was one of the founders of CBT, and he was actually talking about how they were helping a client with like severe schizophrenia, and the way they started the therapy was like playing music and then playing video games. And it was like, all right, I mean, this guy is like in his 80s and he's passed now, but like this guy saw the value of establishing that alliance, that rapport, and that trust. And then there's a conversation that can flow from, say, hey, what did you want to do growing up? Oh, I wanted to be a mechanic, but like I just can't see through the pipes. It's like, okay, so did you ever get your eyes checked? And it turns out this guy just like needed glasses, but he always felt like such a failure. And that led to the intensifying of the agitation and the paranoia. And so it's like, wow, they use the video games and the music stuff to build that alliance. And then you can have these more open and authentic conversations. And so that's kind of at the essence what video games can do in therapy, is like, hey, you like build this relationship where this person can really put their defenses down, really open up. Actually, that was my email response. I just sent him that video.
If we boil it down, if you just listen to what you're just saying, it's video game therapy. You're thinking, oh, they're just playing video games. Like, no, this is another level because you're saying, I'm using this vehicle of bonding partnered with the relationship I build with the client. Plus, I'm using these therapeutic approaches mixed in to pull out whatever comes in between. And so there's no Joe Schmo that can walk in and, oh yeah, me and you are going to play video games and it's just going to work. Like, no, you're doing models, you're doing pieces, you're interacting with this person in a particular way to get them to process that. If you don't know how to blend them together while maneuvering this vehicle, then yeah, no, like it's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. It's a skill, and yeah, it might be the same as like if I met a client for the first time and they opened the door and they got a Harry Potter Gryffindor sweater. It's like, oh, cool, you align with Gryffindor, and it's, hey, you just like open up, and then it's like, man, what makes you feel like you're a Gryffindor? And it's like, oh, I want to be brave and this, and it's like, okay, cool, and then now you have like values, and then you can work off that with like act and stuff.
Yeah,
So
using metaphors and things.
Yeah.
yeah, it's all connected.
Yeah. And I think it's just, yeah, when that response, when you're talking about that supervisor, I think it's just the fear of just not understanding. And that's what happens is people that are so adamant about something and they're saying, no, it's not going to work. It's like, they're just don't understand it. And there's this like, well, what about the willingness and openness to just check it out and see, maybe it does work. Maybe it can be effective, but I think it's just, I don't know if it could be a generational thing too. I'm sure probably like more of like, yeah, older generations, boomers, or maybe more resistant or hesitant about using it. But like, yeah, when I see like millennials, Gen Zers, like they're going to be like therapists. Yeah, I think they're going to be down for that. I know they know personally because I play video games and they play with their friends and and how that can maybe open up conversations during when they're playing games or online, and so they can see the benefit of like, yeah, this can work.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, even when in high school, I got handed to my dad for being a great gamer. It's like he's a literal boomer, and it was a contradiction because I would go to class and then other teachers who were like younger than my dad would be like, well, what's the big deal about video games? And like, hey, Congress is like, investigating video gamers because of the mass shootings. And so it's like kind of see the BS and maybe how the media tries to blame video games for massive tragedies going around.
Aggressive behavior and
Oh yeah, yeah. It creates more aggressive kids or violent, more tendency of violence or sociopathic behaviors and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like
And,
that.
and
Yeah.
I guess I would say like to that, the risk in the video game community is, it's a large group of people, and so you might have very unhealthy, very toxic types of folks, very influential young males, and kind of causing harm in that sense too. So but it doesn't do society justice for us to like turn a blind eye and just point fingers, because that cesspool is still going to be there. And so what I think could really help is, all right, well, let's get the healers involved. Let's get the good folks involved, because we for sure outnumber people trying to do harm in that realm.
Yeah, or at least
So
then set stricter limits because yeah, those communities can be very supportive or they can be very vile, volatile.
yeah, and that is the risk. And I guess it's got to talk about staying safe online, how to do that. I guess maybe when we were growing up, it was MySpace. It was like, oh, be careful about meeting some random person on MySpace, and you just kind of hear horror stories about that. So you got to be safe about it. I think it's a really hard job for parents to always keep tabs and keep
Oh
up
yeah,
to
they're not
date.
going to be able to do that at all. And
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
just
So
having the conversation, but many don't want to have that conversation.
yeah, there's some good associations, parent, family run associations where they give ratings on games or social media sites, or even Roblox has some pages on how to keep parental controls. And so there are resources, there are communities out there to help parents who are trying to keep their kids safe, for sure. So you don't have to do it on your own. There's a much larger community trying to help.
Before we move into this last portion, tell us about this VR. Like, how do you work the VR? Because Monet has experience with using VR in therapy, which is futuristic, which I believe there's been a couple of medical companies that have discussed it as well and trying to incorporate it into their programs. But here you are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really, really great time. The technology has become so much more affordable. VR device that costs like $300 now would have cost thousands of dollars beforehand. Yeah, I kind of fell into it. I was working as a co-founder at a VR kind of startup. And so I got to experience the difference. You're just so much more immersed in a lot of ways than video games. I'm sure there's some better, Andrew Huberman could probably talk about it better than I could, but you really get zoned in. I felt a bit more connected with my client. You could just kind of see the hand and body movements, and they would like pass a ball to you, and it really feels like, oh, ball's coming.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I guess I would say that it's really helpful for like phobias as well. I mean, of course, I still do it with play therapy, but great for like art therapy. Like, even though my name's Monet, I have no like artistic ability. And so if I wanted to do art therapy, like I would feel more frustrated trying to actually paint. But in, say, VR, like I have the paintbrush and I can like construct a structure and have, I guess, more the expression of my thoughts and feelings can come out more accurately. And this was something I saw with the young kids too, who some of them had physical disabilities and struggled to even hold a pencil. So like trying to do art and coloring would just frustrate them. But then they could go into the VR and the software and like boom, spawn a car, or like had one very creative young girl create like a wall tapestry and then use that to describe like a traumatic memory of hers. And it was like, wow. And I was there with their other therapists, and he was like, she's never talked about that. So yeah, really great, because you have these digital artistic kind of avenues there. Dr. Elizabeth McMahon, somebody I learned how to do VR therapy with for anxieties and phobias, and I think she was at Kaiser for a good 30 years or so. She's helped a lot of folks who maybe were scared to fly or scared to even drive across the Golden Gate Bridge, to the point where, like they got promoted and now they got to drive into work. Well, they are terrified of driving over that bridge. So the VR could help with reducing that anxiety as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, it's like a desensitization in a way. Like it's like with the EMDR, we're doing it more like in a way of closing the eyes, the eye movements, hand taps, and you're bringing up like the memories, and you're just kind of desensitizing yourself each time. And that's kind of the goal, is to kind of reduce the intensity of those emotions and feelings towards your trauma. And so like this is kind of another form of like being able to do that, but it's actually you're simulating how would it feel like driving across the Golden Gate Bridge? It's almost like your brain is almost thinking like, oh, we're in a car right now going over the Golden Gate Bridge. And so like, yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, it's really just the beginning. So it's a very exciting time. Even though I supervise and practice, like I still do take on clients to just continue to build and just continue to learn. We ran groups as well, and a lot of the kids loved it. And sometimes when I close the group, parents would be like, "Hey, can you like keep this going? Like, this is my kid's only like this is his thing." Like, and it's like, man, we're going through a divorce. Like, can you please just hold on? So it's very powerful.
Yeah, this is a vehicle that we're using as we are interacting with it, as we are immersing ourselves in it. You're being yourself. We're working on things, and there's an underlying approach where we are like using desensitization to confront your fears. We are playing Minecraft and are talking about things and processing them, and so being able to kind of have those skills and to do that. And so, if there are therapists or clinicians out there that are interested in video game counseling, where do we start? How do we begin?
Yep. Well, video game therapy was already taken, so took video game counseling. So, videogamecounseling.com's original website, and there's some articles I've been featured in that could link readers to other researchers, psychologists, therapists who've been doing this for decades. It was called avatar therapy before and funded by the VA. So that's kind of been the gift of this is when I started in 2020, it seemed like a novel idea, but then more I've been in the field, more I've discovered other people who have been doing this for decades, and we're just now more connected and able to talk about it. And that's kind of why I started the group practice. I have a lot of associates who are also, some are licensed now, and they also use video games in therapy. And so doing supervision and kind of going over how to do this has been great. Do have a CU course on using Roblox play therapy on Let's Play Therapy. Probably will create more content down the road.
So, of course, you guys are going to have to follow Monet wherever he is, wherever he goes. And it seems like even just, being able to get your knowledge around play therapy, being able to practice that piece, because Monet, not only in video game therapy, he does eco therapy. He uses many vehicles. So if you want the Ferrari on Friday, got it. The Lambo Saturday, hey, whatever you need.
Yep.
Got it. And I think I think we're living in a time where people are uncertain about this technologies, like when it comes to AI or VR and whatever, video games, the advancement of video games, and people feel maybe fearful or like scared of like, these are like disconnecting us, or they're not making us more cohesive like human beings, or making us more self-actualized. And so people are afraid, but like hearing more about you and what you're doing, it's just like, it's like in a way of like just trying to find, there's benefit to this. Like we can't just throw, the baby without, with the bathwater, like it's like, okay, like how can we harness like the healing powers of this, and like use it for the good and not be so afraid of it, and like these things can bring a lot of healing, and it's just kind of being creative. Like I think as therapy, the therapy field or the therapy world we need to evolve. We need to get like with the times, like, and this is where we're entering in, or we've been in the technological age. And like, we think therapy needs to move along with that. We can't stay with the sandbox anymore with the little trinkets and toys. Like, I think we just have to evolve. And I think that could work too. But like, I think we just need to evolve also and be like, oh, we can use the virtual world as, like I said earlier, the virtual sandbox.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You gotta be willing to step into the unknown, build that competency. And I would say I did find community as well. Geek Therapy was a really helpful Facebook group too. Gosh, like years ago, somebody was like, hey, I've never played a game. Do you guys want to team up? And then, we would actually teach each other different games. And then we would all kind of take turns what game we felt specialized in. So, finding colleagues that, share a goal too can really help you.
Yeah. Whether it's me and Louise, we team up, or whether it's just us individually, or even just parents and their kids, any tips on how we continue to make video games like kind of a healthy healing experience?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's also some pretty knowledgeable psychiatrists out there. One guy, call him Dr. K. He's running Healthy Gamer. GG's, does a lot of Twitch
Oh,
and
yeah. I know what you're
YouTubing.
talking about.
Yeah, he definitely knows both sides of the video games. I think he dropped out of college his junior year because he was gaming so much and he just didn't go to his classes. Went out, decided to, study, and he tried to become what was it? Not a priest. forgot what they call it, like a
Yeah.
monk. Yeah, and then he came back, got in med school, but then yeah, just really try, and that's why I like healthy gamer as like kind of the perspective to take is like, hey, is this an unhealthy level or a healthier level, kind of that bell-shaped curve that we're talking
Might have
about.
to
And
balance.
right. Yeah. And I mean, this guy's Harvard trained and he's got a family and doing Twitch and has a practice and he's still gaming. So
And
there's
he
there's
does
a
some of the
way.
sessions on his Twitch too, so which is pretty cool. And I know there's been some pieces of setting appropriate boundaries and being able to go over that with kids and even adults too, of just like, hey, what things are priorities, what things are important. Hey, we can game as much as we want as long as we get enough sleep, if we have good grades, as long as we're nice to other people, decent human beings, as long as we have a life outside of video games. I think that's been a bigger piece of the kids I work with. And we're taking care of ourselves because there's some kids that aren't brushing their teeth. And yeah.
Yeah, even today earlier I was having a couple session and yeah, they're just talking about playing competitive games and then taking a break from that because it would make them angry and stressed and then kind of isolate. And so then they found a cooperative kind of nurturing game they could do together that didn't cause that kind of stress. So definitely building that emotional awareness, which all part of therapy right there. It all ties in.
And you've talked about even parents who are kind of there. They don't have to be proficient. They don't have to be the most amazing, at Madden to join their kids. But even then, they can be spectators. They can play the game just and know that, hey, I don't have to be amazing at it. I can just roll with you and you'll teach me. And this will be a different part of our relationship. Or at least just being in the room, just being involved as a witness, right?
Oh yeah. Taking the time and paying attention. It's like when kids playing soccer and parents aren't there on the soccer field playing, but maybe they're on the sidelines and they're cheering, and that's still important too. So there's definitely ways of parents to show that they care, that they want to be a cheerleader to their kid. And sometimes that intent that gets communicated to a kid is really that all that matters too.
Even then, I feel like there are some parents who are like, I need to be a proficient in this. Like soccer, I'm not going to go out there with you unless I can like keep up and score a goal on you. Then
Well, I definitely have those thoughts too, where I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be good enough? Oh, is this kid going to like,
surpass me.
yeah, just like talk shit to me and like, oh my God, then I'm going to want to fire him. Like, no, but that I say that just to kind of reveal like, hey, these kind of thoughts, these anxieties, hit me too. And I'm literally the video game counselor. So just make space for it.
I'm pretty sure there's some parents out there that don't want the tables turned at all. Just that one day they're going to come for you. One day my kid's going to beat me in basketball and that's going to be a rough day, but that's what you wanted.
Yeah. It's
the
just
rules of it.
a video game. I think my pride would really, get hurt if like my kid took me down in wrestling. Like I could never, yeah, that'd just be the worst. Like I would spend the rest of my day, like no more video game counseling. We're doing wrestling therapy. I'm going to figure this out.
Hey, sometimes I lose at Uno and then I have to take a second and we're just like,
I've lost many chess matches to elementary, middle school kids.
Like, no, we're going to play again.
But my session's over. No, man. No.
Nah, you're stuck here.
Yeah, close the door. Like, no, your mom's not coming
even
until we're done.
But even then, that's an experience in just like modeling, hey, this is how we lose, this is how we handle it.
Right. Yeah, you gotta model losing and winning well. Yeah.
And then by yourself. Next time I get them.
Yeah, it's a whole new world, and yet trying to figure out how we have relationships with this growing society, this growing technology, and being more and more immersed in our life, and knowing there has to be boundaries, knowing there has to be life outside of it, and that we can still connect with other people. And so,
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I think kind of at times in our society, whether social media or whatever, kind of gives this very bleak dystopian kind of view of like technology, and it's just like we're all gonna be slaves to it, and like it's gonna control our lives, and we're not gonna be able to go out. We're not gonna go
It's gonna be
outside no more. We're
self-learning,
not gonna have
self-reliant.
friendships. We're not gonna,
Mhm.
it's very negative, very dark, but I think that's where it's like having to shine the bright light of it too, and understand that we don't have to catastrophize technology or make it seem like it's going to like break us apart as humanity.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, just recently I was up in SF and still trying to make friends out there and found a meetup group where they're like, "Hey, we're game developers. Like, we're just fans of making games." And I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And I just went out there and I think I was the only one that showed up, but then they're like, "Hey, this is cool. There's actually a barbecue happening next week." Went to that barbecue, met some more people, just people in the, developers and the software side and fans. So, it's such a popular medium that you're eventually going to find a social connection through it.
And if it works and it's healthy, like it thrives. I mean, I've met some of my clients and some of the kids I've worked with over the years are like, oh yeah, I play with so and so who was in Virginia, and now that I'm old enough, I want to go see them, and we hung out in person, and it was nice.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, oh
Totally.
wow, like there's stories in communities like that, or like, oh yeah, like my dad died and was playing this game, and someone in Texas and their dad had also like passed away, and we bonded over that. And so there's value in these pieces, so I can see how parents are kind of like, hey, yeah, go ahead, do it. But then again, safety, boundaries.
Right, right. Yeah, actually, that you just remind me of like a very powerful session I had where I was just in this like Roblox game and it was a sinking ship. And this kid was just like, "All right, so like pretend to drown and I'm going to save you." And I was like, "Okay, I'm drowning." And it just like, my character just like flops to the side. He's like, "Okay, I'm going to pick you up." It's like, "Okay." And then like we're just doing this like 10 to 15 times. And then I'm just like, "Okay, what are we doing?" He's like, "Okay, now pretend to be my dad." And his dad had passed years ago. And he's like, "Now pretend to save me." And I was like, "Oh shoot, like it's happening." Like, yeah, like, oh, I get to like enact this and help him. I was like, wow. So yeah, you just never really know, and just keep at it. I would say, I just share that story to show that like sometimes you just have to have that faith and just trust the process, and it's okay for the kids to surprise you in that regard too.
This is one of the bigger lessons I've come to learn more in therapy is the magic of therapy is what you both create in the session, and trusting that if we create something today, it's because we both were genuine, we both authentic, we both showed up to it, and magic happened. It happened,
Yeah.
between us.
Yeah, it's kind of letting go of the
Yeah,
control. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that's within
everything.
everything,
Yep.
Like I'm starting to learn to play golf and like my swing sucks right now, but like I know when I can swing and hit the ball and connect well is when I just let go and not really
Mm-hmm.
overthink and just let my body just flow with
Yeah.
it. And that's when it just like hits well, and it's like the same thing with anything. It's just like letting go of control, letting go of overthinking and thinking like, oh, I got to do this and do that. And like, no, just let it go, let it flow, just trust in the process. Like you're saying, like it will hit certain buttons eventually and it'll get there. And then you'll have that moment like that kid starts bringing up about like, okay, now you're my dad.
Yep.
Save me, like though you're like, oh my God, it's happening right here, right now.
Yeah.
Holy, so, but like, yeah, it's just being able to just don't overthink it, let it flow,
Yep.
let it go.
Just do your best. And so
Yeah, just do your best. Yeah.
that's a solid lesson once you grasp it. So Monet, where do they find you? How do we find you? Do we need to come up to SF and go to your house, or what? How do we get a hold of you?
No need to go that far. Yeah, I'm fortunate to be virtual only. We're in network with many insurances like Aetna, United, Optum, and some EAPs, and we're all I think probably like 7, 8 therapists, so we're all in network. I got 2 websites: video game counseling and then channeling growth therapy, because some people were getting confused by video game counseling. They thought it was just purely to help people stop playing video games. And then so I started channeling growth therapy for that more traditional kind of expansive, therapy for couples and trauma. So those are the 2. I'm not great at social media. I'm doing a million things, but hopefully I'll have some social media manager and create more content. This is definitely, first step.
Yeah. So of course, links and everything will be in the bio, details of this episode. Thank you again, Monet.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by.
We will have him back plenty of times because there's many more things to talk about. AI for sure. Yeah,
there's gonna be
because
one,
they're trying to
for
take our
sure.
jobs. So,
Take his job as therapist. It's wild.
See what the clients think
oh
of that.
man. So we'll be in tune. We'll be in touch. And yeah, thank you again for tuning into Therapy House, the podcast. All right. Peace. Say bye, Monet.
Bye.